We're getting to the last session of this meeting. It's on the question is open science challenging career evaluation in the Iberian universities? So I'm not here because of being a specialist of Iberian universities at all, but I'm here as the former rector of the University of Liège in Belgium, and mostly as chair of the EUA expert subgroup on research assessment, which is a subgroup that we have created within the EUA group on open science, as soon as we realized that we would never get anywhere in open science without reforming completely the way that researchers are being evaluated. And this is the topic of this whole morning, so I will not go more into that. But we will have a look. We've always been very interested, as Brecht told you a few minutes ago, we've always been very interested in knowing local expertise and what people are actually working on and how they can set examples. And again, as everybody else today, I've been very, very impressed by the Dutch experience, by the rector of Maastricht University. Very, very interesting and strong and determined way to go into open science, with, of course, keeping in mind the fact that it's absolutely necessary to change the assessment procedures. And so we will start with Professor Francisco José Mora Mas, who is full professor of electronic engineering at the University, the Politècnica University of Valencia, of which he is the current rector. And he's also chair of the CRUE Committee on Open Science. He's vice president of the Spanish Rectors Conference, vice president of the Spanish Association of Science and Technology Parks, and president of the entrepreneurship network Red Emprendia, if I pronounce it well. So Francisco, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bernard. According to the question in this session, it's open science challenging career evaluation in Iberian universities. Clearly, yes. We overview all the open science priorities in Europe and their actions. We can see that this change will arrive. If we're looking at the priorities in Europe, of open science, we have open science publications, which the action plan is Plan S, open access data with the European Open Science Cloud. Another priority is the global cooperation on societal challenges, and the plan is Horizon Europe, it works on that. Research integrity, and the plan is update European Code of Research Integrities. Another priority of open science is the citizen science, and Europe is elaborating the sharing best practices and recommendations. And the two last priorities are rewards and incentives, with the definition of guidelines and training, and new metrics, and the definition of alternative indicator for measuring scientific output, other than citation or journal impact factor, as was mentioned before. If we look at the progress made in this open science priority, we can, okay, I would summarize that open access publications and research integrity are, okay, they have a high level of progress. Open access data, global cooperation on societal challenges, and citizen science in the medium progress. And at least from the Iberian point of view, from a Spanish point of view, I would say that rewards and incentives and the new metrics are in a very, very low level of actions, at least in Spain, I would say. Which are the main obstacles to change that I notice in Spain? Okay, as in other parts, the metrics used are much more difficult to evaluate and or to weight, yeah, in the formula of a curricula, which weight we give to these metrics, because sometimes the metrics we agree in a short term, but the problem is the weight we give to that metrics, and research is very competitive. Researcher worries a lot about the metrics and about their CV, how they their CVs in order to get grants and projects. And also they worry that they don't like to happen something like it happens in education and teaching, that sometimes the best teacher and educator is not at the top of the metrics used to evaluate education. They worry about that. It's true that in research also there are some non-ethical practices, but normally in most of the areas, I would say in all areas, the top researchers that appear are the top ones. And in teaching activities, it doesn't happen the same sometimes, because yeah, I mean that I usually say that for teaching activities, even though the quality cannot be well defined, you know well what it is, because if you ask me in my department of electronic engineering, which are the best teachers, I have to recognize, and I'm director of this technical university, that sometimes are not at the top according to the metrics we use inside the university, because we cannot ponderate or weight well some quality elements. And these things worry also to our researchers, because as Rector of Maastricht mentioned, biases is a question that appears in these metrics. Another obstacle to change is the higher cost of the evaluation. The cost for evaluating people and institutions and projects must be quantitative and qualitative, and it's much more costly. And also the other obstacle is that the research proposal evaluation must change. If researchers don't notice, and the academia doesn't notice that research or academic activities are not, it will modify the nowadays evaluation, they will not move in the other direction. So how to encourage the needed change in career evaluation? From my point of view, in very simple ways, in three aspects. Institutional level, that I think that this is the easier one, because society will push more and more to universities to move in that direction, in open science way. Society, citizens pay a lot through the taxes to universities. They invest a lot of money in university, and they ask more and more things. The universities will be more and more evaluated by their impact in the region, for attending the global challenges, sustainable development goals, and so on. So universities will have external pressure to change, and the prestige of the university will be linked to this open science. So from that side, I think that we have a good driver. But in order to advance more, we need the individual hour and merit of a broad range of activities with impact in science and society at the individual level, as it was mentioned also previously. In Spain, there is a project, not a project, it's been created, the knowledge transfer term. It's a professor and lecturer can be recognized by their activity during a period of time. That is related, these activities is not research, not only research. It has a lot of elements, several elements of open science, technology transfer to companies, patents, spin-off, science dissemination, research collaboration outside academia, impact of your research in your region. So it's a small step, that I think will have a big impact in a few years. Because in the academia, we move by these things. This small recognition have a big impact. So if for that, according to this, I say that the individual hour and merit is important in order to advance quickly. And finally, the third element to encourage these changes is the research proposal should be evaluated according to open science activities. If we don't see that our projects, our grants take into account this, in this so competitive world, we will not move the right step. No? So, as in conclusion, as the rector of Maastricht mentioned, this is a cultural change, and as any other cultural change, it will arrive with time, pushing from different angles. It's not only a question of institution, of a person, individual person. It must be from different sides. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that you're in time.
Thank you very much, Francisco. We will continue immediately to Luís Neves, who's a full professor of earth sciences at the University of Coimbra. He's the former dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology, and he's now the vice-rector at the University of Coimbra, in charge of finances and human resources. So Luís, floor is yours.
Thank you, Bernard. I hope you are listening well. So, Good morning to you all, and thank you for the invitation to this panel. Let me share a presentation that will be mostly relative to the Portuguese situation. Sorry. So this will be relative, as I was saying, to the Portuguese reality at our universities. So I will start trying to answer to this question. Is open science challenging career evaluation in the Iberian universities? Well, my answer is that we have work in progress, but there is still a long way to go. Please don't think from this answer that I do not support open science. On the contrary, and I can explain. Going back in time to 2001, I have founded an open access electronic journal in the field of earth sciences. It was obvious to me at that time that funding constraints resulting from the costs of printing and distributing were increasingly moving scientific publication from universities, departments, and scientific societies to commercial editors. Open electronic formats and internet distribution were the obvious answer to that funding problem. However, it did not work, and the project was abandoned 10 years later. The reasons why early electronic open access journals were not a success are still valid today, and I will come back to this later. First, some context on career evaluation in the Portuguese universities that may be a little different, for example, from Spain. In my view, there are two different types of evaluation involved with different implications for open science. One type is related with the entry in the academic career and vertical progression between the three categories of auxiliary, associate, and full professor. The second type of evaluation is related with horizontal progression between 4 different salary levels existing for each one of those 3 categories. Let's look now to both types of progression with more detail, starting with vertical progression on the left. Entry in the career or vertical progression between categories may occur at any moment determined by the institution. When a position is opened by the institution, there is a mandatory international call for candidates that are evaluated by a panel of 5 to 9 specialists. Here we have a chance of a detailed evaluation where quality criteria can play an important role in the decisions. A paper should be evaluated by its own quality and not for the journal where it was published. However, unfortunately, many panel members still rely on fast science indicators provided by commercial editors, like H-index and journal impact factors, and sometimes institutions also promote the use of these indicators, defining mandatory evaluation criteria using them. Thus, we can conclude that for this type of evaluation, open science may play a role, but that depends on the wish of the institutions and members of the panels. The second type of evaluation, on the right, leading to the horizontal progression, is the periodic evaluation done by the universities to all academic staff. This is typically carried out in cycles of 2 or 3 years and involves all academic staff at the same time. For example, in Coimbra, around 1,500 professors. Due to the massive nature of this evaluation, it is usually based in a large set of quantitative indicators. Here, quantity prevails over quality, with little space for other forms of subjective evaluation. Thus, we can conclude that in this type of evaluation, the role of open science is limited by the absence of reliable indicators that can replace the ones provided by commercial editors and widely used by the scientific community. So, what can we do to promote open science in the context of career evaluation? At the institutional level, I would say, define recruitment criteria that can effectively promote a true quality evaluation and are open science inclusive. It only depends on us. Provide institutional platforms to support open science. For example, at University of Coimbra, we have the Impactum platform for journals and the Open Monograph platform for books. Provide a digital archive for all scientific publications affiliated in the institutions independently of their origin. In Coimbra, we have the Estudo Geral platform. And finally, promote the interoperability of the digital archive platform and existing evaluation platforms. At the level of the scientific community, and I would like to mention 2 critical aspects that are really hard to achieve. First, it is necessary a certification of the quality of open access journals, namely on peer review procedure, in order to avoid predatory publishing. As you well know, we are continuously being invited to publish in unknown journals of every possible scientific areas. It's just a matter of playing, and you can be a specialist of mathematics or medicine, you choose. Second, reliable and meaningful quantitative indicators are needed for open science, metrics, that can replace commercial indicators, at least for fast evaluation procedures. And thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Luís. Just trying to get back here. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for this informative speech on the Portuguese approach in Coimbra. Now it's time to call Maria de Lourdes Correia Fernandes, who's full professor of at the University of Porto. She's Vice-Rector for Education, Academic Affairs, and Cooperation of this university. She was a member, and in some cases, president of external assessment committees of A3ES for program evaluation, institutional accreditation, and internal quality assurance system. And currently she coordinates at the University of Porto, the European University Alliance for Global Health. Maria, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for this kind invitation. I will take advantage of some experience on external evaluation of research only for grant applications to our National Science and Technology Foundation and under the supervision of our national agency for evaluation and accreditation, institutional and program evaluation and internal quality assurance system. I must say that the research in Portugal is assessed by the Portuguese Science and Technology Foundation. The last years, the evaluation was coordinated only by international members, not by Portuguese members. But it is also our national agency for research, FCT, Fundação para a Ciência e Tecnologia, which coordinates the network of open access scientific repositories in Portugal. These repositories depending on a mandatory open access law in Portugal. But although we have this national law, each higher education institution defines its own rules, except for PhD theses and master dissertations, which must have since 2014, when Portugal defined officially the open access policy carried out by the Science and Technology Foundation. Master and PhD theses and master dissertations must mandatory a copy on an electronic open access repository belonging to the national network of repositories. And according to the diploma in degrees law, it is absolutely mandatory, but it has some exceptions for those cases where there is some kind of embargo or restrictions depending on the kind of thesis and the external collaboration of the student. As the assessment of institutions as a whole, and I must say that we have a law that guarantees the autonomy of higher education institutions. We have a legal regime for higher education institutions. We have a higher education assessment law, and each institution must develop its own quality assurance system. And for quality assurance framework, rules and documents are produced by the National Evaluation and Accreditation Agency. In Portugal, we have totally separated evaluation procedures. One, research is taken by the Science and Technology Foundation, and the other of evaluation of programs, institutions, and the quality assurance in general is taken by the National Agency for Accreditation and Evaluation. And this focus on program evaluation each 6 years, institutional evaluation every 6 years, and internal quality assurance system is optional. In all of them, program, institutional or internal quality assurance, education, research, internationalization, human resources, information systems, and links to stakeholders and society are criteria for evaluation. We have our law, national law, demands that qualify the human resources and career, at least 50% have to have tenure positions as a mandatory requirement for accreditation. But in none of them, in FCT or Science and Technology Foundation for Research, well, for at least the evaluation of grants, in none of them is any orientation towards considering open access. So it is a criteria depending on the peers, on the academics that are evaluating the programs, the institutions, the quality assurance systems. So although there is a policy, a national policy for open access, in all processes of evaluation, the open access is not a mandatory aspect to be considered. Each institution has their own criteria for evaluation of the work of teachers every year, and for evaluation and progression, as Professor, the Vice-Rector for the University of Coimbra just said. It's the same in all public institutions in Portugal. We have the vertical progression that does not require any, it depends only on the academics which evaluate the teachers and the academics in this process. So there is many aspects, in fact, there is still many aspects of use and open access that need yet to be clarified. The Vice-Rector of the University of Coimbra showed the importance of differentiation between commercial editors and the local or the institutional journals. In fact, it is very difficult to have and to define similar indicators. In Portugal, the external assessment committees, institutional or academic assessment, are not instructed to verify the compliance with these requirements, and neither do they verify if the internal career assessment procedures include any of these legal obligations. So it depends very much on the sensibility and on the perspective of each evaluator, each academic which has the role of evaluator, and our National Agency Accreditation and Evaluation requirements do not demand any attention to this aspect, which is still formally focused on theses and dissertations, or depend on researchers' options. In many universities which have open access repositories, many teachers put their own publications in free access, but it depends on initiative of each academic. So I think it is very important to continue to deep a shared debate about open access, the current conditions, the difficulties, including with the commercial editors, and especially future challenges. I agree totally, I fully agree with the idea of this is a cultural change, but a cultural change is at the same time to have instruments and institutional instruments so that we can go ahead and evince difficulties, improve involving governments, involving higher education institutions, scientific community, funding and evaluation agencies. If we don't, I think the cooperation between all these institutions, all these stakeholders, we must say, it is very difficult to make a strong and rapid cultural change. I know that cultural changes are not rapid, are not fast, but to go it faster than it will be if we don't have this kind of collaboration. We need this and the involvement of evaluation agencies and including in the evaluation processes perspective about the institutional or individual perspective about open access. I think it is very, very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria. And so now we are coming to the last speaker, who's Mercedes Siles Molina. She is full professor of algebra at the University of Malaga in Spain. And she's a director of the National Agency for Quality Assessment and Accreditation in Spain. Mercedes, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Bernard. I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see it.
Yes, very well, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So many thanks for the kind invitation to CRUE and CRUP to participate in this event. Well, first of all, I would like to speak very briefly about ANECA, which is the National Agency for Quality Assessment and Accreditation of Spain. It was born in 2002 as a national foundation whose main goal is to contribute to the improvement of the quality of the national system of education at the level of the university, and the tools that were used are the assessment, certification, and also the accreditation of studies, faculty members, and institutions. And 4 years later, in 2016, it became a public agency. This second birth took place with the aim of promoting the quality of the Spanish system within the framework of criteria and guidelines for quality assurance in the European higher education area. Here you can see that our procedures, we have PEP and Academia, which are two programs which arise with the aim of contributing to the design of a model of teaching and research career model to become faculty members. These procedures accredit the different figures. This one you can see here, PEP, is for non-permanent positions, and the numbers that appear in the slide correspond to the evaluations in year 2019. You can see that we received more than 10,000 applications and 77% passed. Our second program is Academia, which is for associate professor and also for full professor. And last year, we evaluated 2,815 applications, and the success ratio is 79% for associate professor and 74% for full professor. We also evaluate research. Each year we receive about 10,000 of applications, and the success ratio is about 94% for permanent professors. And last year we have also started to evaluate the transfer of knowledge, and we have had a first pilot experience which has finished a month ago, and the number of evaluations has been more than 16,000, and the success has been 42%. 2%. Here you can see we have had a big amount of evaluations. We have doing the evaluation in several steps. And although we do more evaluations and accreditation, I would like to center our attention in the evaluation of knowledge transfer. After this experience we have had, after knowing what researchers transfer, we have a real perspective, and we think that instead of speaking about open science, we should speak about open knowledge. And this has also been mentioned before, because it's not open science, it's more than science, it's open knowledge. It's to transfer our knowledge to society. And which are the steps we must follow? First, in the case of Spain, we have to see where Spain is in research in order to avoid a victim position. And I have to say that our position in the world concerning research is among the first 10 countries. And second, we must fix realistic incentives and also realistic goals. Which are the concrete aspects we are able to modify? Well, I think that from ANECA, we can push researchers to do transfer, of course, without forgetting basic research. And also from the agency, we may settle the criteria to evaluate the open contributions. And which will be the goal? The goal will be to consolidate the sexenios de transferencia, we call in Spanish like that, which is the evaluation of the 6-year period of transfer of knowledge, with clear criteria of open knowledge. And after our experience, we need to adjust the criteria, and we are working on it in order to let know society the research we do, the knowledge which our researchers provide, and of course, without forgetting about basic research, because this is the cornerstone of research. And which are the incentives we have at hand? Well, a call every year to evaluate the transfer, assess the transfer in the accreditation for positions to become faculty member, and also our international label of open knowledge for universities. As for the problems we have detected, we can speak about the huge amount of applications we receive, the need of considering clear and objective criteria, and also open knowledge comes up against the interest of big publishing houses, which put economical barriers, and also concerning the copyright. And the change of the indices to assess research. This is a danger. I mean, try to change the indices to evaluate the research is a danger, because after 30 years evaluating research, we have consolidated our system, and a change could imply to destroy all of this work. And more problems we have detected are the inertia to continue doing things as we have been doing. And also it is convenient to distinguish clearly between open knowledge and open publication by paying, because as you know, there are journals which publish their research after paying an amount, and we could think that this is open science, but this is not true. In fact, they should be considered as predatory journals, and they should not be taken into account for the assess of research. And what we clearly stand for is for open knowledge. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mercedes. So now we're ready for the discussion. Okay. Maybe I should, looking at the questions and answers, I realized that we're having several questions or areas of wondering. And the most striking one is, in fact, what is the scope of open science? When we all talk about open science, many of the people who are following us now have the feeling that we're not all talking about the same thing. because of course open science is not just open access. There must be other criteria, and it has been, I think, well explained by the rector of Maastricht University. What is your feeling about how far we should go? And when we talk about open access, are we just talking about green open access, which is something that is being done almost everywhere now with repositories, so on, or but we know that that doesn't change anything or not much in the relationship with the big houses for publication. Do you think don't you think we should stress more the fact that for evaluation we need other criteria than just publications? It's important, of course, but maybe it's not the only thing to look at. I don't know who wants to answer this or to comment. If you do, the simplest thing is just to open your microphone and speak. I don't know. I've seen that.
I may. I'm not authorized to put my video, but anyway, I will talk.
Okay.
The hostess closed my video. The hostess closed. Okay.
Oh, the host.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I'm not the host.
Okay. Thank you. No, I think it is very important to distinguish between open publication and open knowledge. Of course, I agree totally, because we have this great problem: is researchers must pay a lot to publish in journals, in some journals. And this is the major problem for open access or free access to knowledge. And there are many people who, academics, who are not convinced of the importance of open access precisely because of this problem with open publication and commercial editors.
Yes, you're right. But don't you think that we should stress the fact that this is a real cultural change?
Yes.
If we don't input a cultural change, getting rid of this idea of the prestige of the journal, which is still very strong in many of us, because we've been educated like that, and we tend to have special consideration for papers in Nature or in journals like that, and we've done the calculation on the chances of being cited if you have a paper in Nature. That the impact factor of the journal Nature is built by 14% of the articles.
Yes.
The rest is very often not even cited. But if you give 40 points to a paper published in Nature, it may just be a paper that's never cited. So it's very unjust, unfair. Somebody asked about the preprint platforms, the digital platforms. Should we not focus on that more? Maybe putting some security on it, because we don't want to have anybody write anything, as we have seen many times in the pandemic just now. A lot of papers uncontrolled and then retracted, the high record of the retracted papers. So should we focus on improving the open platform system, or promoting it with the European authorities, for instance, so that they support financially these platforms? I don't know what the opinion general is with the speakers.
I agree totally.
Yes.
Yes, Mercedes?
Yes. I think that we should distinguish between research and knowledge, because knowledge is more general than only research. And for research and for knowledge, could be very interesting to have a common platform in Europe, of course. But I think that we must distinguish between the evaluation of research and of knowledge, because for research, for 30 years, as I have said, we have a system very consolidated, the success ratio is very high. So we take into account the indices, and we also have into account, for example, the number of citations or other things as the quality, of course, of the research. But for open knowledge, we must take into account more things. For example, how you translate your knowledge to society or in different ways. So we have started with this pilot experience, and I think that, well, our idea is to do it every year, and I think that we can learn from this experience.
Yeah, I understand that. Any other comment?
Can I?
Luís, yes?
So certainly that open science is not the same thing as open access. But I think there is a very important point. As Brett Sannen showed us by the inquiries of EUA, publications are really the most important point in career evaluation. So if you cannot solve this, you cannot solve anything else.
Yeah.
This is my point. And this is why we have insisted so much in open access, probably in this session.
But it might be also interesting to keep talking about the other aspects of open science, so that gets in the minds of people that it's not just making publications as many as possible and as quickly as possible, because this is really clouding the landscape in a terrible way. We cannot even longer do a good peer review because we don't have the time. We're overwhelmed. So I think the change in mentality is very important in that respect. But yeah, it's so easy to just count the number of publications, multiply by the impact factor, and you get an answer which is irrelevant, but then but still many people are using it. Francisco was asking.
I would like to stress that the nature of science has changed a lot, and is changing quickly. We see that a medium project, not only the big ones or very, very complex. A normal one needs a cooperation. There is not a certain level of projects that one institution by itself can do it alone. So this global cooperation is very important, not only among institutions, also in the between areas. I mean, people from one discipline with another. So these boxes of science are broken. That's changed. For me, it's very important the open access data. I think this is the platform that will provoke big changes. All the data that you can replicate and experiment, you can access to the real value of the research and to reproduce. That will help a lot. And also it has implication in the publication, because the publication is a system from centuries. So it's very old. Yeah. All the digital technology that we have on the table, the amount of data that we have to manage, as you mentioned, Bernard, it's impossible now to evaluate appropriately the document, a paper. You have to refuse a lot of them because it's so broad. So I think that global cooperation and open access data will change the level of, I wouldn't say the level, the impact of the publications.
Yeah. I think we are getting late, and maybe the host should tell me.